Hello, welcome back to Out of Spec Reviews, and welcome to another range test. It's a beautiful sunny day. In fact, it's in my eyes, so I can't even see the camera. And I have with me a Mercedes, not a ground-up EV platform. This is based on the same platform as a GLB. This is the EQB, the luxury SUV from Mercedes that's electric. One of them. I mean, there's the EQS SUV. There's a lot of things happening, but this is the smaller SUV, kind of boxy, kind of cool. Let's take a look around. So as it wraps up charging here, this is, the EQB. I keep wanting to call it the GLB because that's what I've tested before. But this is basically the same thing with a few interesting modifications that have improved it, including the road noise and such. Let me preface this with Kyle having already done a video on the 350 and the 300. This is the 350, the EQB 350 4MATIC. So same battery, same pretty much everything, just a bit more power, a bit more powerful motors, I think, 215 kilowatt total. And four-wheel drive system. So we're gonna see how far this goes on the range test. Go watch Kyle's in-depth video. It's 37 minutes on the nose on both the 300 and the 350. He did a great job assessing how it drives, the ride comfort, the seats, all that. Today is focused pretty much exclusively on the range test, but I might add a couple opinions here and there, including the fact that I really like how this thing looks. It is polarizing. Some people don't like it. I love how boxy it is. I think that's very useful. It's pretty class leading in terms of storage. And honestly, I think this has a great place in this segment. Some comments I'll make during the drive is just, is this really compromised being a shared platform? A platform that exists as a combustion and now has been adopted to an EV. I think it does have a place, and it's one way to do it. We've seen this before with the BMW i4 and a few other cars, but it means it's compromised in a few ways as well. You'll see in Kyle's video underneath the trunk, there's no frunk. It's just poorly used space with lots of cables and things. This has the 19-inch wheels with, what are these tires? The Continental Pro Contact GX SSR, and the size, they're 235 width, so almost as thin as my Miata tires. That's pretty thin, but we'll see how that does with the efficiency. So as it's wrapping up, let's talk about, first of all, denim blue metallic. Love this color, beautiful color. The wheels have a little blue kind of spokes on them. This can be optioned with 18s as well, or maybe the 350 comes with 19s. Keep in mind, this is the 350. So range, 227 miles as stated by the EPA. Price, 60 grand, just about exactly. That's fairly steep considering this is a fairly base car. It is the 350, so a bit more power than the 300. And that gives it 16 miles less range as quoted by the EPA. Although I wonder how well that actually quantifies it, because in theory, it's all the same motors and everything. I think this is just juiced up a bit. Maybe it is different motors, but on the highway, I feel like it'd be almost identical. I don't know how the range is calculated. I think that's mixed driving, in which case they're assessing that you use more power, but this is a constant 70 miles an hour highway range test. So we'll see if that actually results in any disparities. Hoping to test the 300 on the highway at some point soon. So 227 miles. Will we actually hit it? I don't know. It's not the most efficiently shaped vehicle. It's a bit boxy, not the drag coefficient of the EQS or the EQE, which we have tested before. So I'm excited to see how this goes. Again, beautiful sunny day. It is right about 56 degrees, perfect weather. The wind is at about 3 miles an hour, so that should be a negligible thing. I'm thinking this will do maybe 200 miles. I like to guess, even though I could be completely wrong or completely right sometimes. So we'll test that out. Before we head out, really quick though, the specs on this, as I mentioned, 215 kilowatts between the two motors, a permanent magnet rear motor, asynchronous front motor. In eco mode, I believe it disconnects the front motor, which makes it even more efficient, only using the rear to power the vehicle. 66.5 kilowatt hours usable of the 70.5 or 70.7 actually, I think is what they state for the 350 gross capacity. So that's not a huge battery pack. That's why it's not going to have an amazing range, but for a shared platform car, that's not bad. That's like the exact same EPA estimate as the Volvo XC40 Recharge, or very close. Similar battery size as well. So I guess you could kind of call these competitors, which is funny because I never thought I'd compare a Mercedes with a Volvo, but I am. They're about the same price. I guess this is probably a bit more expensive than the Volvo, and in some ways better, in some ways worse. I'll have a few comments on the drive. Let's get going. And we are off. Everything has been reset and we are moving along. So the first thing we do is switch it to eco mode. There we are. So you have individual, sport, comfort, and eco. Of course, individual you can tweak to your liking as far as throttle response, steering wheel feel, I guess. I'm not sure what all those settings are, but we just set it in eco mode for these range tests. We reset all the values and we use climate control at 68 degrees on its most eco-friendly setting, in which case this is just auto. Everything else, pretty much standard. Nice and easy out of this gas station, which is funny, by the way. I had some people looking at me as if I was icing the charging station, which is maybe a perk of these shared platform EVs, is the fact that they look normal. They're not trying to be this weird EV, has to be different, look like it's from a sci-fi movie that was terrible. It just looks like a normal GLB, but with the grille kind of blacked out, nice blade looking taillight. Really a fan of the design of this car. So just gonna pull out onto the highway here. And again, we set everything at 70 miles an hour constant, which I will of course GPS verify, although Mercedes tends to be very accurate as far as their real speed versus indicated, which is funny how some cars are just not very accurate. Jumping onto the highway here. So I'll talk a little bit about how this car is optioned versus what it could have. We'll get cruise control set up. I don't believe this has any lane centering, it has no heads-up display. It might have adaptive cruise control, I guess we'll find out. It'd be kind of annoying if it didn't. But jumping right up here to 70 miles an hour, cruise control on, set at 70. So, yeah, no buttons to adjust a distance or anything like that. And seems pretty bare bones to me. No lane centering. I think this has lane departure assist, maybe, but it is like, there is not many options. One thing that was spec'd was heated seats. That's a $500 option. This paint was $750. Other than that, this is literally the cheapest possible EQB 350 you can buy. Now again, there's the 300 for a bit less as well, and I would honestly probably opt for that. Even based on Kyle's driving impressions, he thought the 300 was great. It's still quick enough. It's funny, they brag about it having 7 seconds 0 to 60 on their website, which is not something to brag about. That is extremely slow for EV standard, but it's still quick for an SUV standard, especially given the fact that this is a 3-row optional SUV. I don't believe we have that option. We just have the 2-row situation. But it's because of the boxy shape, that's something they can kind of get away with, and it probably works better than the 3-row Model Y. So sitting here at a perfect 70 miles an hour on a perfect weather day, I will now check the GPS verified speed, make sure we're all good to go there, and we'll just head north to Cheyenne and then east along the kind of I-80 corridor. It's where we typically do our range tests. There's some hills involved, but it's a loop style thing, so the hills are pretty much counteracted. There are very minor hills, minor undulations. And again, I said wind was negligible. There's a slight bit of wind leaving Cheyenne going east, but that wind, which is a tailwind for us going out, becomes a headwind coming back. So that's about 6 miles an hour right now. Very negligible. As far as range tests go, this should be about as to the books as you can be. And as expected, the 70 miles an hour indicated is 70 GPS verified through multiple apps. So we are good to go. Just gonna head north. Really not a whole lot to see. I actually like it when it's like cloudy or interesting to look at least we have some golden trees. It's beautiful fall weather out here in Colorado. And this car is nice. Now, Kyle mentioned it in his video, but I'll mention it as well. I actually like the GLB, probably more than Kyle, when we were testing it. But this one is improved in a few ways. Because the GLB was combustion, it had that feisty little turbo 4-cylinder making noise and ruckus, which was fun. But without that in here, you notice more road noise, more NVH, noise, vibration, and harshness. This has much less of that. Mercedes has basically improved the material feel a bit, improved the interior sound, so it's really not bad, especially given the boxy nature of the car. Still, it is a B class, so not that fancy. This definitely feels like a step down from the EQB I just range tested a couple weeks ago, but still nice Mercedes overall. Bit more plastic here and there, and again, very few options on this particular one. No heated steering wheel, no cooled seats, obviously no massage seats. Just step down overall, but I like the look and feel of the interior. It claims 100 kilowatt peak charging speed for DC fast charging. That's pretty bad, but it's all about the curve. Not all about the curve. Peak charging speed is important, but if it holds 100 kilowatts for a long time, that's actually not a terrible charging speed. And I've noticed this car being very inaccurate with its estimated charge amount. For example, I plugged in at 93%. It said 1 hour to full. And within about 16 minutes, it was full. So not sure why or how it's calculating that, or if it's just miscalculating based on the charge point CP 250s we were using back there. I was happy that it overestimated, made me happy. So I'll be aiming to turn around probably somewhere near Kimball, which I think is, Nebraska, because that's about 100 miles from the charger, and I'm gonna guess, 200 miles, give or take. Always better to play it a little bit safe on these, especially because I'm not sure what this one will do at the bottom of the pack. I can assume it'll give me decent power like the EQE and EQS, but again, it is a adopted platform rather than ground up, so I'm not sure how much their strategy has changed. There's a decent size buffer in the battery, 4 kilowatt hours or so, which is not big but not tiny, so I'll take it. And hopefully this doesn't do what the Volvo platforms do, the CMA ones, where it just destroys your power below like 10%. I will update you guys every 25% increment, so 75, 50, 25, etc. And of course, we'll see what it does at the bottom of the pack. We'll explore it together, and I'll let you know what I come up with as far as opinions on, I guess, the ride feel through this miniature road trip to nowhere. I've got my road trip coffee and snacks good to go for this beautiful, desolate drive through northern Colorado, Wyoming, and Nebraska. So as we approach our 75% check-in, I just wanted to make a couple more notes on the EQB. I wish you could have state of charge displayed on the actual driver display. Unfortunately, it is stuck to just having the bar with 4 segments, which works pretty well, but it's just a small gripe, very small. The displays themselves are pretty nice. Now, this is a very small version of MBUX, and by the way, just hit 75% state of charge, and we've done just over 50 miles. So my guess seems fairly accurate, I'm gonna say. We'll see. No exact Burt's Bees chapstick holder that I always look for, so I guess cup holder will do. This thing's a little bit too cavernous, you just kind of lose it there. Minor gripes, you know. And the materials, there's definitely piano black kind of everywhere. You have this nice palm rest to use the touchpad for the actual screen, which helps. You don't have touchpads on like the EQS and EQE that have screens like easier to access right here. Although, as many of you mentioned in my EQE range test, the screen was dirty and you couldn't see the screen, and honestly neither could I. So the way this is angled is much better in terms of times like this where it's more direct sunlight. Now on the camera I can see you probably still seeing a bit of glare. I can see it better than the camera is showing that I can see it, if that makes any sense. Piano black up here, although I do like the depth effect it gives by like mirroring, reflecting this interesting texture. It's actually not really textured, it's just glossy, but it looks interesting. But so far, comfort-wise, quite solid. This does not have the adaptive suspension dampening, which I think is an option. Again, this is pretty much bare bones. In fact, let's talk about some things this is missing that I just never thought would be the case. You never know like what cars from certain brands have what things standard. This is optioned equivalently to my 10-year-old Mazda Miata, which is staggering because actually my Miata has keyless entry, this doesn't, which blows my mind that that's an option on a Mercedes. This has no adaptive cruise control, no lane correction or departure warning or anything. It is very, very standard bare bones cruise control. Does have heated seats, but again, that's an option. I'm guessing it could probably have cooled seats because there's a blank here on the door, so that's probably an option. No heads-up display is an option. This does not have that. So a few glaring missing things. No 360-degree camera. There's a backup camera, but that's mandated by FMVSS, I think. So that, you know, it has things. It's fine. You do get to see state of charge on that screen, and you also see the cool little infograph that shows that the rear motor is the only one actually being used. So that's pretty neat. But yeah, just continuing on, heading towards Nebraska. I'm guessing I'll be turning around somewhere near Kimball. That's a rough guess. Again, I have a slight tailwind of maybe 3 miles an hour right now, so I have to remember that's a headwind on the way back. And like I said, all these rolling hills kind of cancel each other out more or less. It's impossible to find like a flawlessly flat place. So this is about what we have to work with, but it's the same range test we do everything through. So be curious to see how this stacks up against some of the competition. Side note, did you know Cup Noodles makes chips? Good road snacks. And coffee brought to you by Corvus. It's their Halcyon blend for anyone who cares. But yeah, that'll help me get me through this short road trip to nowhere, because again, only 200-ish miles of range. This is no Lucid at all, which is kind of great. This is just an easier range test to do. And the charging speed makes this, I don't know, like I said, not quite the road tripper, although still better than a Chevy Bolt, although that does have more range than this. So that's interesting. For less than half the price, you can have more range, but half the charging. So you give and take, I suppose. Nebraska, and about a third of the battery through, so 2/3 remaining. Still too early to tell exactly how we'll do, but that's the whole point of this video. So have my navigation routing back to Wellington, not the charger. I don't know if this does any preconditioning, but we don't route to the charger just in case. So keeping an eye on what it says the distance will be, but it doesn't tell you anything about state of charge. Won't tell you what you'll arrive with, what it guesses, none of that stuff. So yeah, very bare bones. This is not really an EV that's like nerdy EV. It's just literally just feels like a gas car with engine plopped out, battery and motors plopped in. Not much else has changed. Here we are at our exit, our turnaround point, which reached with a bit more battery. I usually try to turn around with like 55% state of charge, but I am turning around with 58%. That being said, like I said, there was a tailwind, which is now a headwind, and this is a box, effectively. So turning around here, nice easy turnaround though. I've turned around on pretty much all these exits in various EVs, so not too worried about it. But we've gone exactly 100 miles, and we will basically drive 100 miles back, and we'll see how close that 200-mile guess really is. I feel like I'm going to have some buffer to work with, which means I'll basically do another shorter loop, either on the interstate if mileage allows, or I will just do some frontage roads at close to highway speeds just to really ink out every last bit. That's a one-way. This is the right way. Here we go. Okay, we're good. Yeah, just Nebraska. Farmland, beautiful out here. Absolutely love it. I know I keep saying that, so I apologize, but really can't be mad about these range tests. They're just peaceful, nice place to be. There's plenty worse cars to be in. I know I have my complaints about this car, but there are things that could be worse. By the way, with enough acceleration, it does actually enable the front motor, so it's not like a full disconnect when eco mode is always on. But in general, the front motor is not on because it is asynchronous, not permanent magnet, so that is just fine. But we are back at our 70 miles an hour cruise control and just creeped back up. So we'll see how it does. But so far, good efficiency, over nearly 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour. So that's really solid. I do think that'll deplete quicker on the way back. I'd just rather play it safe than sorry. So we'll keep you posted when I hit around 50% state of charge, and again at 25, and again at the end. So here we are at 25% state of charge. Yes, I did forget to film 50, and I even saw that this said 115 or 114 miles, because I caught my attention because I was like, oh, we're exactly half of the EPA range at 50% state of charge. So sorry about forgetting to film that. Just to, I don't know, focus on something. So here we are at 25% state of charge. We have done 158 miles right about there. So looking to beat my 200-mile estimate, but not quite hit the EPA, which makes sense. It's somewhere in between, makes perfect sense. The disparity is decreasing, so I think at the turnaround point it was like, I don't remember, 100 miles to the destination, 120 miles estimated range. That is down to like 13 miles, so we'll still have a bit extra to ink out, which should be no problem. We'll see what happens when this car gets down to low state of charge. I'm assuming it'll have some sort of kind of turtle mode type thing at a low state of charge. It should, in theory, dock some of the power, but it's hard to know. We'll find out in, I don't know, anywhere from 14 to 10%. And we have 19 miles estimated range, up to 20 max. So I guess that's if I were to slow down, that would help that. And then 17 miles to the actual charger. So that disparity we saw earlier has shrunken massively because we did hit some crosswinds, which those are the bummer winds because you don't get to offset those by going back and forth, you know, headwind versus tailwind counteracting each other. Crosswinds hurt you negatively both ways. Now, we didn't have any on the way up, so wow, these people just went in front of me and then slowed down. And I don't have adaptive cruise control, so can't do anything about that. What the heck? All right, resume 70. And now they're slowing speed back up again. I tell you, Colorado drivers sometimes. But yes, welcome back to Northern Colorado. We are nearing the end of the range test. Genuinely a good vehicle. I know I have my gripes, but it just works. If you like the GLB, you'll love this. If you don't like the GLB or think options shouldn't cost this much, because if you optioned this how you would want it, I guarantee it'd be 70,000 plus, which is premium, but then at that point with all the options, it would feel more premium. I'm genuinely comfortable. I said these seats weren't great, but they're also not bad. Like, I don't feel fatigued in the slightest, which is totally fine. So I could road trip this other than the charging speed, as we mentioned before, but we should be having a charging video on this as well, so stay tuned for that. But for this range test, genuinely good place to hang out. Oh, let me mention the stereo. This is the standard base stereo. I don't even know if you can upgrade that in this car. The builder, the configurator online is not yet live. So let me preface all this with that, which I should have said at the beginning. So I don't know exactly what options you can add or what they cost. I've just seen photos of Mercedes websites showing heads-up display and stuff like that. So I know that's an option. But the stereo is fine, not great. It's almost like each thing in a vacuum is good. Like, the bass feels quality, the highs feel pretty quality, but the bass is non-specific. It's a bit too boomy if you crank it, but then if you drop it, it's too shallow. The highs can be a bit shrill and not, like, kind of clear, but kind of shrill, that weird balance. And the mids are almost like, I don't know what they're doing. So that's nitpicking it. It is actually a good sound system. The bass stereo in this is better than the premium Bose stereo I tested in the Honda Accord. Not that they're the same car at all, but that's just another thing I had in mind. So just gonna keep going here. 14 miles to the charger, 16 remaining. So we're getting to that point. Oh, that's not the charger. I'm routing to Wellington, which is like a mile past the charger. So yeah, I'll have a little bit to burn the front road. You can join me then. So apparently this message, reserve level, charge high voltage battery, comes up at 15% and then again at 7.5%. Those are strangely specific numbers, but that's back on the screen there. Seems that I still have my power, but if I go to this right screen and scroll up, I should see there's my power, and there's a arrow right there, if you can see that, right below 100. So I think that's telling me the power limitation. We're gonna keep an eye on that. It notates it a bit differently than it did the EQE. Really quick, you can note my consumption screen here, which shows average 3 miles per kilowatt hour. That's pretty good. We're almost back, so this should stay pretty much the same. But the breakdown of the energy used, 96% driving, 1% heating and cooling, so that's negligible, 3% other. I wish they would tell you what that means. But we are here at 5% state of charge, which has docked the power down to just about 50%, just a little bit over. And we've just hit 200 miles exactly. So I was pretty close, but definitely didn't give it enough credit. I think it's more efficient than I thought, and that's including the side wind we got hit with for a bit. That was only a few miles of harsh side wind, so probably negligible in the long run, but we are just a couple miles from the charger, enough juice to burn on the frontage road. So join me on the frontage road in a second, and then we'll pull to the charger and see what our final results are. So really quick, here is our exit, where I'll notate the fact that we did 70 constant to do 203 miles. So now we'll see what we can get with the rest of the remaining 4% state of charge at almost 70. The frontage road we can usually hit about 60. And I have the region, reduced drive system performance, see operator's manual. Okay, so I think 4% is another warning, I guess. But yep, definitely feeling the lack of power in the accelerator there. I can't clear this message away, so I can no longer see exactly how far I've gone. But our power limitation is down to about 37% or 40% roughly at 4% state of charge. So definitely less throttle, but still enough to kind of maneuver city speeds. So part of these range tests is to see what it does at low state of charge and what you can expect if you were to buy this car and do this exact thing. Squeeze every last drop out of it on a road trip. Something else I have an opinion about, which I guess is everything, honestly, but in Kyle's driving impressions, he talked about the paddles, which I'll reference here. The minus gives you more regen, which I feel is a backwards, I don't know, I would have had plus be regen amount, but minus is more regen, denoted by D minus, and then plus will make it D, and then D plus, and then both have D auto if you hold it down, which is kind of like automatic regen based on what's in front of you, I think, which is interesting because it doesn't have the adaptive cruise control capabilities. So not sure how that works. But yeah, I also hacked the screen. Well, not really hacked, just changed it. So now I can see how far I've gone. But down to 3% state of charge here. And yeah, it doesn't quite do one pedal driving. Even on D minus, which is the most amount of regen, it's not really one pedal driving. It feels like it will be, and then it slows down to a creeping speed. And then at that point it just creeps. So there's no automatic hold function, no true one pedal driving, just kind of an almost one pedal drive. If that really matters to you, that's something to note. This car lacks it. Oh, by the way, I have that cute little turtle guy on the screen there. Love that. Should really name him. What would you name a Mercedes turtle? Leave your vote in the comments below. Anyways, just gonna whip up and down this frontage road really quick here, and we'll make our way back to the charger. Getting back to the charger, just about there. Says 1 mile remaining, estimated 1% state of charge, and for reference, we have about 25% power. So still enough to, like, look, I'm still up to 50 miles an hour, 55. You could probably ink it slowly up to 70 even. But there we go, 0% state of charge. Working through that last mile of estimated remaining time, and the charger is just up here. So looks like the final tally is definitely better than I expected. Obviously not EPA, but EPA is typically not assumed at 70 miles an hour constant with eco mode and everything. It's honestly a decent guess for combined driving, I think, especially for this car. But yeah, EPA is not a number you can go off of for highway driving in typical cases with electric cars. And there we go, just hit 0 miles, 0% state of charge, pulling in. Love it when this happens. All came together, almost all on the highway, a little bit of frontage road action at 60-ish. So pretty darn accurate as far as I could say. A little bit of wind, as I mentioned, but yeah, driving this ice-based platform past the petrol stations, not going there. Let's go see how we did. Right, well, the wind has picked up, so I will do my outro and final thoughts inside the car. Final result, 211 miles on the nose. Really solid, better than the 200 I expected. Worse than the 227 EPA, but as we mentioned, that was not to be expected. So now we're ramping up charging, 50 kilowatts. Part of that's limited by the CPE 250s that we're plugged into. They're not going to deliver full power, but yeah, this won't do more than 100 kilowatts supposedly. We'll find out with Mercedes once we do the actual charging test. But for a range test, pretty solid results. I'm happy with that. Let me know what you guys think, and let me know what you think of the EQB. This car is, as tested, again, $60,000. As spec'd how you'd want it, probably 70, 75. That's a lot of money. but then it's pitched as a luxury EV SUV. So let me know what you think of this. Why would you buy this over a Model Y or say like an EMGP car, like a Genesis GV60? I mean, that's like the same price, but feels like way better equipped for some reason, and newer 800 volt better technology. Just, yeah, why would you buy this over those? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think of the Mercedes EQB 350 4MATIC. And we'll see you guys in another video very soon. I didn't wreck it this time. It's great.